Banned from love, bound by power. Their bond shook the stars. Jack stood inside the large docking bay of the human space station. Today was the most important day of his career. The Virelians were arriving, an alien race no human had met face to face until now. This was humanity's first direct contact, and Jack was lucky enough to be on the team. He was just an engineer, not a diplomat, but he helped build the translation system. That's why he was chosen to be here, in case anything went wrong. Still, he couldn't help but feel nervous as the alien ship slowly landed. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass, and strange lights moved across it like waves. Everyone stood still, waiting. Then the doors opened, and the Virelians came out. They were tall and smooth-skinned, with soft colors like silver and blue. Their eyes glowed gently, and their clothes looked like they were made of light. But then Jack saw her. One of them walked differently from the others. With quiet grace and confidence, her eyes were brighter, her steps slower, as if she was paying attention to everything. She was beautiful in a strange way, not human, but elegant and powerful, and her eyes locked with Jack's, just for a second, but it felt longer. He froze, unsure why she was looking at him. Maybe she was scanning the team like the others. He quickly looked away, but his mind betrayed him. A strange image popped into his head of her, standing close to him, smiling, wearing something not official. His face turned red. Where did that thought come from? He scolded himself silently. Idiot, don't think things like that. But it was too late. When he looked up again, she was still looking at him, and then she smirked. A small, amused smile pulled at the corners of her lips. She had heard his thought, somehow. She had read his mind. Jack's heart sank. He wanted to disappear. He wasn't sure what would happen now. Would she be angry? Would this cause a diplomatic disaster? The lead diplomat stepped forward to welcome the aliens. Everyone was focused on the speech, but Jack couldn't hear anything. He was too busy trying not to panic. He could feel her gaze even when she wasn't looking at him anymore. After the speech, the aliens moved toward the hallway. Led by the human officials, Jack tried to step back and disappear into the crowd. But before he could, the alien girl changed direction and walked straight toward him. She stopped right in front of him, looking at him with calm but curious eyes. Her voice was soft and musical, and the translator on Jack's wrist repeated her words, "Human Jack." She said, "You have a very loud mind." Jack stuttered, "I am sorry. I didn't mean it, just happened." She tilted her head and smiled again. "No need to explain," she said. "Human thoughts are different, full of strong images, strong emotions." She leaned in just a little, her glowing eyes watching him closely. "We Virelians don't hide our thoughts, but humans, you try to, and that makes them even louder." Jack didn't know what to say. His mind was spinning. Was she angry? Was she warning him? Or was she amused? "I'll try not to think about anything strange," he said quickly, trying to fix the situation. Her smile widened. "That will be difficult," she said. "Your kind burns with imagination. Your thoughts are like fire." Then she brushed past him, close enough that he felt a strange pulse of energy. He turned to watch her walk away, joining her group again without saying anything else. Jack stood there, frozen. No one else noticed the conversation. To the others, it looked like nothing happened, but Jack knew the truth. He had just embarrassed himself in front of an alien, not just any alien, but one who could read minds. His heart was still racing, and somehow, the worst part was that she hadn't looked offended. She had smirked, like she enjoyed it. Jack didn't know what that meant, but he was sure of one thing: this mission was going to be very, very complicated. The next morning, Jack didn't want to get out of bed. He kept thinking about what happened yesterday. He had made a fool of himself in front of the first telepathic alien he had ever met, and instead of being angry, she had smiled. He finally dragged himself out and got ready. His assignment was waiting, and he couldn't avoid it. When he reached the Central Operations Hall, the station commander greeted him with a nod. "Jack, you've been assigned to guide one of the Virelian guests," he said. Jack's stomach dropped. "Which one?" he asked carefully. Already guessing the answer, the commander turned to a nearby platform. "She requested you personally," he said. Jack turned slowly, and there she was, Valari, standing with her arms folded behind her back, watching him. Again, her face calm, her eyes glowing faintly. And yes, there it was again, a small smile on her lips. "Good morning, human Jack," she said softly. He nodded, trying not to think anything stupid. "Good morning, Ambassador Valari," he replied. Her eyebrow lifted slightly, amused. "No need for titles today," she said. "We're partners now." They were assigned to tour the lower levels of the station, to inspect the energy systems and observe how humans used artificial gravity. Jack focused on the details, trying to explain everything clearly. He avoided eye contact, afraid she might read more thoughts if he got distracted again. But the more he tried not to think about her, the worse it became. His brain betrayed him random images, half-formed thoughts, questions he never meant to ask. Valari said nothing, but every time something embarrassing crossed his mind, she would glance sideways at him. And every time, that tiny smile appeared. It wasn't mean or cruel. It was like she was enjoying it. Jack finally stopped in front of a power panel, pretending to check the readings. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, his voice low. "I really don't mean to think this way. It just happens." She stood beside him in silence, then spoke. "You think too loudly," she said, "but I don't mind." Jack turned to her, surprised. "You don't?" Valari shook her head gently. "No, it's refreshing," she said. "Most species we meet hide everything. They wear masks, lie with smiles. But your mind shows your truth, even when you don't speak it." Jack felt a little better, but still awkward. He started walking again, and she followed beside him, her steps quiet but sure. As they moved deeper into the station, the lights flickered. Jack frowned. "That's strange," he muttered, tapping his communicator. A voice answered. "There's an energy disturbance near the shield generator. Possibly a small explosion. Stay close," Jack told Valari. Picking up his pace, they entered a narrow corridor where the emergency lights glowed red. Sparks flew from a nearby vent, and smoke curled up to the ceiling. Suddenly, a shape moved in the smoke. A figure in dark armor stepped out, holding something that looked like a weapon. Jack froze, then pushed Valari behind him. The attacker raised the device, but before Jack could move, Valari stepped out, her hand glowing with blue light. She whispered something in her language, and the air shimmered around them. The weapon fired, but the energy stopped midair. Trapped in a field of light, Valari lifted her hand higher, and the attacker collapsed. Like a puppet with cut strings, unconscious, Jack stared, wide-eyed. "You just blocked a plasma shot," he said. Valari turned to him, her face calm again. "Yes," she said. "We don't always need violence." She reached out and touched his shoulder. "I also heard your fear." She added, "You were afraid for me." Jack swallowed. "Of course I was," he said. "You're my responsibility." She looked into his eyes for a long moment, then smiled, this time with something gentler than amusement. "I think you're more than that," she said quietly. Jack didn't know what to say before he could answer. More voices echoed down the hall. Security had arrived. They dragged the unconscious intruder away, and the emergency lights faded. As Jack and Valari walked back toward the main platform, the tension between them had changed. She still smiled when he thought strange things, but now, her smile was softer, less teasing, and Jack wasn't sure if he was more nervous or more curious, because deep down, something was waking up inside him, and he wasn't sure it was entirely human anymore. They told Jack not to dream, but that night, he did. He dreamed of running barefoot on a black ocean, where stars floated on the surface like lanterns. He wasn't alone. Valari was there, not speaking, just watching him from a distance, her eyes glowing brighter than the stars. She raised one hand, and suddenly the ocean cracked like glass. He woke up with a gasp, sweat on his forehead. His chest was tight, like something had been pulled out of him and stuffed back in the wrong way. Valari was sitting silently near the wall, watching him. She didn't speak right away. "You were dreaming," she said finally. Jack blinked, still trying to catch his breath. "Yeah," he whispered. "You were in it." She stood slowly, her movements quiet, almost as smooth. "I didn't enter it," she said, "but I felt it from here." Jack sat up, rubbing his face. "Do you do that often? Watch people sleep?" "No," she said. "Only you." That answer didn't help him feel any better. Valari walked over to the center of the room and touched the glowing panel. The walls shifted, revealing a slow-moving swirl of energy behind a clear barrier. Our minds are not shaped like yours, she said. Your thoughts bend in strange directions. Jack frowned, stepping beside her. What does that mean? It means you hide things from even yourself, she said. I found something last night. Something buried deep. Jack froze. I didn't give you permission to dig that deep. I wasn't digging, she replied. It came to me. The room fell silent. Jack looked down at his hands. He remembered the dream again, how the stars cracked when she raised her hand. How much did you see? He asked. Valari looked at him quietly. Just enough to know you're not as simple as you pretend to be. Jack laughed bitterly. Well, welcome to humanity. But her eyes didn't leave him. You saw war, she said. Not just memories. Visions of things that haven't happened yet. Jack looked up sharply. You think it's the future? She didn't answer directly. Instead, she reached forward and placed her fingers on his temple. Let me show you what I saw, she said. The moment her fingers touched his skin, the room disappeared. Jack stood in a burning city. Alien ships flew overhead, and giant machines walked through the rubble. Humans were fighting not just with weapons, but with something glowing inside their hands. Some of them had fire in their eyes, blue fire, the same glow Valari carried. One of them turned to look at him. It was Jack, but older, angrier, and no longer human. He snapped out of it, falling back, breathing hard. What was that? He asked. A vision? A dream? A warning? Valari stared at him with something like fear in her eyes. I don't know, she said, but I've never shared something like that before. Not even with my own kind. Jack stood, pacing now. Why? Me. Why is my mind showing this, I think? She said slowly. You are changing. Jack looked down at his hands, remembering the heat he felt during the attack, the way he had moved without thinking, and how the intruder's weapon had slowed down, almost like time had bent for a moment. He didn't say it out loud, but he had felt something. Valari stepped forward. If what I saw is true, then you are not just human anymore. Jack stared at her, trying to believe what he was hearing. I didn't ask for this, he said. I didn't want any of this, I know, she replied. But now you carry it. She walked to the door, pausing before it opened. There's a name, she said, in my people's old records before the stars, before language. She turned to him, her voice soft. It means the mind that awakens fire. The door slid open with a hiss, and she left. Jack sat down, staring at the empty space where she had been. His mind raced, full of strange images and feelings he couldn't explain. He had come here as a trainee, a simple human among aliens. Now he was seeing visions of war, glowing hands, and possible futures. He whispered to himself, what the hell am I becoming? Jack couldn't feel his body. He floated in darkness, weightless, silent, cold, no sound, no thoughts, no breath, only her voice. Valari echoing softly, stay with me. Then light. Pain rushed into him like fire through frozen wires. His eyes opened with a sharp gasp, his chest rising like he had just been born again. He was lying on the floor, inside the medical chamber. Sparks flickered from a broken panel, and red emergency lights painted everything in a warning glow. Valari knelt beside him, her face pale, glowing dimly. Her hands hovered above his chest, surrounded by a strange silver-blue energy. She looked exhausted, but calm. You stopped breathing, she said quietly. Your mind collapsed under stress. Jack blinked, slowly sitting up. What happened? There was another attack, she said. A second intruder, but not like before. Jack looked around, dazed. The guy in black armor? She shook her head. This one was different. His mind was empty, like a machine. Jack rubbed his temples, still dizzy. You fought him? I didn't have to, she replied. You did. Jack froze. I what? She stared at him, serious now. You don't remember? He shook his head slowly. No, nothing. Valari stood, helping him up. When the attack happened, I was trapped behind a shield wall, she said. But you, Jack, you moved like something else had taken control. He tried to laugh it off, but her expression didn't change. I'm serious, she said. You lifted the attacker into the air without touching him. Jack backed away a step. No, that's impossible. Your eyes were glowing. she said. Like mine. The room went silent, except for the low hum of broken systems. Jack remembered the dream, the future vision, the burning cities, his older self with glowing hands. He looked down at his fingers now, almost afraid to move. Valari stepped forward again. You saved me, she said. But it wasn't just survival, it was instinct, power, raw and uncontrolled. He sat down slowly on a nearby bench, his hands shaking. Why me? He whispered. Why is this happening to me? Valari didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached out, not touching him but letting her energy hover near. You were never just a soldier, she said. You were chosen. Jack looked up, confused. Chosen by who? Her eyes lowered. I don't know, she said. But there is something ancient inside you, and it responds to danger, to emotion. A silence fell between them, thick with questions neither could answer. Then Valari did something unexpected. She sat beside him, closer than before, and closed her eyes. What are you doing? He asked. We're going to link, she said, not just surface thoughts, deeper. Jack hesitated. Are you sure? Last time you almost passed out from just skimming my memories. She smiled slightly this time. I'm not going alone. She reached out and touched his hand. Her energy flowed through him like a warm river, and suddenly everything around them faded. They were no longer in the ship. They stood on a red mountain under two suns, wind blowing through their hair. He saw her memories now, her people, her planet, her loneliness, her fear of the council watching her every move. She saw his memories, too, his childhood, his training, the deep sadness he carried but never spoke about. Then they saw something else, together. They stood in a vision, both of them side by side on a battlefield in space, alien ships burning, a bright blue light spreading from their joined hands, other minds reaching out to them, some afraid, some desperate, and behind them, the council watching with cold eyes. Jack pulled back, gasping. The link broke, and they were back in the medical chamber, both of them breathing hard, as if they had run for miles. What was that? He asked. Valari stared into the air. A future that might come, she said, or a warning. Jack stood, shaken but stronger now. We need to talk to your people, he said. The council, they have to know what's happening. Valari looked at him with something new in her eyes, not curiosity, not amusement, but respect. No, she said. They already know. Jack froze. What do you mean? She stepped forward and whispered. They've known since the moment I touched your mind. The chamber lights flickered again, and in the distance, alarms began to sound. Jack clenched his fists. Whatever was coming next, he wasn't running from it, not anymore. The voices weren't his, but they were in his head. Jack stood in the shower, steam rising all around him, water sliding down his skin. He wasn't thinking about Valari, or the visions, or even the attacks. He was trying to think of nothing. But that silence didn't stay empty. A whisper came, faint and broken. He is not one of them. Jack froze. Breath caught in his chest. He spun around, heart pounding. But the room was empty, just steam, water, and the quiet hum of the ship's systems. He pressed both palms to the wall. Get out of my head, he said out loud, whoever you are. But the voice didn't answer. It just laughed. Later that day, Jack walked into the observation chamber and saw Valari standing by the large window. She didn't turn to look at him, but she spoke softly. They're starting to notice. Jack joined her, confused. Who? My people, she said. And yours? He frowned. What do you mean mine? Earth doesn't even know what's happening here. She turned toward him now, her expression sharp. Do you really believe that? Jack stared at her. Then slowly, the truth began to sink in. Someone from Earth knew about me. Valari nodded. Your mind wasn't born with this power, Jack. Something triggered it. Jack remembered the dream, the fire in his hands, the voices, the strange ship crashing in the distance. He remembered his crash on Mars 3 years ago, how he'd survived alone for 2 days before rescue arrived, and how he never remembered what happened during the first night. You think someone planted it in me? He asked, his voice cold. No, Valari replied. I think someone activated what was already there. Before he could ask more, a loud alarm echoed across the chamber. Valari's eyes widened. The council, she said. They've called for both of us. Moments later, they stood in a wide chamber lit by pale violet light. 7 tall figures stood in a circle, their bodies hidden under shimmering robes. Their faces masked. Valari bowed. Jack did not. One of the masked beings spoke, its voice deep and echoing from every wall. The human has become unstable. Jack took a step forward. I saved your people twice, he said. Unstable doesn't sound very grateful. Another voice followed, higher and colder. You unlocked powers beyond your control. Your presence is a risk to the balance. Valari's voice rang clear. Then why let him near me? Why approve the link? The council was silent. Then the tallest figure spoke. Because we needed to know if it would happen again. Jack felt his blood go cold again. Valari's eyes narrowed. You used him, she said. The council didn't deny it. The last one was destroyed, the voice said. His mind burned through galaxies. His name was lost. Jack felt something move inside his chest, something alive and angry. You think I'll become a weapon, he said. That I'll burn planets and lose my name? No one answered. Jack turned to Valari. Is this why they warned you? Why they told you not to get close to me? Her silence told him everything. The council spoke again. The bond must be severed. No. Valari said at once. It's not your choice. The voice replied. You are under command. Valari stepped in front of Jack, her glow rising. Her voice calm but strong. I will not obey. In that moment, Jack felt her mind reach for his, not to read, not to control, but to stand beside. They were linked again, but deeper than before. He felt her fear, her strength, her trust, and she felt his rage, his fire, and something else, something not yet fully awakened. Jack looked at the council. If you want to break the bond, you'll have to break me. The room dimmed, and the figures said nothing, but as Jack and Valari left the chamber together, hand in hand, a single voice echoed behind them. Then may the stars forgive you both. It started with a mirror. Jack had seen his reflection 1,000 times before, but this time, it didn't move when he did. He stood frozen in the corridor near the cryo chamber, staring at the glass. His own face looked back, same eyes, same scar, same hair, but when Jack tilted his head to the left, the reflection turned right. Then it smiled, not a normal smile. A knowing one, slow and cold. Jack blinked, and the reflection vanished. Now it showed him as normal again, moving in sync. But something had already changed inside him. He didn't tell Valari, not yet, because he wasn't sure if he was going mad or waking up. They were hiding now, deep inside the station's older levels. These halls weren't on the map. Dust floated in the air like ghost ash, and the lights flickered like dying fireflies. Valari sat cross-legged, eyes closed, breathing slowly. They had escaped the council's guards 2 days ago, but their bond was stronger than ever. Jack leaned against the wall, whispering, "They'll come soon." Valari opened her eyes. "They're already watching," she said. "I can feel them in the outer mines." Jack stepped forward, voice tense. "Then we have to leave. We can't hide forever." Valari stood, her silver blue glow flickering with stress. "There's one place left," she said. "Below us, beneath the ships." "Bones." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What's there?" Valari hesitated. "My ancestors buried something, an artifact, ancient, dangerous, and locked away." Jack didn't like the sound of that. "And we're going toward it." She nodded. "Because it may hold the truth about you." They descended into the lower levels, where the walls were carved from dark stone, and the air tasted of metal and forgotten time. Symbols glowed on the floor, older than any language Jack had seen. His head began to ache, like the symbols were trying to speak directly into his brain. Finally, they reached a circular chamber, silent and hollow. At its center stood a tall obelisk, cracked, humming softly with power. It pulsed every few seconds, like a heartbeat. Valari reached out, but before she touched it, Jack stepped forward. His fingers brushed the surface, and the world split open. He saw fire falling from the sky, stars dying in reverse, humans and aliens standing side by side, glowing with the same light, a child with eyes like his, holding a world in their hands. And behind it all, a voice older than time, whispering a single word, "Remember." Jack fell to his knees, gasping. Valari grabbed him, but he waved her off. "It's okay," he said. "I saw everything." She looked at him, confused and afraid. "What did you see?" Jack stood slowly, eyes glowing now not just blue, but laced with gold. I saw where this all began, he said. And what's coming next? Suddenly, a blast shook the chamber. Guards had arrived, council enforcers, fully armed, weapons raised. Valari moved to shield Jack, but he stepped in front of her. You want the truth? Jack said to the soldiers, his voice like thunder. Then take a good look. He raised his hand, and the obelisk responded. Light erupted from it, wrapping around him, bending space and thought. The guards froze, trapped in time like statues. Valari stared at him in awe. You're not human anymore, she whispered. Jack turned to her, his voice calm. No, he said, I'm more. No one remembered who called the trial, but the entire Union gathered. 12,000 species, countless minds, all watching the same floating chamber orbiting a dead moon. At the center of it all stood Jack, alone, surrounded by silence. No guards, no chains, just eyes, thousands of them. The council sat above him, their forms flickering between light and shadow. Valari stood far behind the glass, blocked by energy fields. She was not allowed to speak. She was not allowed to think near him, but Jack felt her anyway. Their bond hummed through his skin. She was scared not for herself, but for him, and he was calm to calm. A voice spoke, loud and layered. You are charged with breaking protocol, forming a forbidden merge, and exposing classified history. Jack said nothing. The voice continued. You are also accused of altering psychic structure, spreading influence across minds, and awakening powers not seen in Union records. He looked up. I didn't awaken it, he said. You buried it. A low murmur moved through the hall, like a hive breathing. The council leaned closer. And what do you claim to be? Jack's eyes shimmered with color. I don't claim, he said. I remember. The lights dimmed without warning. Every telepath in the room went silent at once. Not out of fear, out of instinct, because something in Jack's presence reminded them of the old stories, the ones their elders never finished telling. Valari pressed her hand to the glass, her voice barely a thought. Jack, please don't. He closed his eyes and released the memory. Not a weapon, not a beam of light, just truth, launched like a quiet storm across the minds of everyone present. They saw it, earth before fire. Human cities floating in skies of gold, children moving planets with a thought. Then, the fall. A war of minds too powerful to survive themselves, and the self-imposed forgetting. To save what remained, the Union hadn't created humans. They had found them, damaged, broken, buried, and kept them small when the memory ended. The room was silent. Even the council didn't move. Jack turned, looking toward Valari. He raised his hand slowly, and the glass vanished. She stepped forward. They stood together. No speeches, no war cries, just presence. One alien girl, one human boy, and something ancient between them. I don't want revenge, Jack said quietly. I want a choice. The head of the council leaned back. And if we say no? Jack looked up at the stars through the broken dome, then back at the council. Then we walk. He said, we don't need your Union. Whispers echoed across every ship, some in awe, some in fear. A few in agreement. The Union had forgotten what it meant to be wild, to grow without control. Jack was a reminder. And Valari, she was proof that something new could be born from two forgotten paths. One of the council members finally spoke, not in anger, but in wonder. What will you do now? Jack smiled. Explore, he said. Learn who we really are. He looked at Valari. She smirked. He didn't apologize this time. They turned and walked into the light. No ship, no weapons. Just a pulse of memory behind them. Some said they vanished. Others said they became something else. But everyone remembered what the telepaths heard in that last moment. A voice not male or female, not human or alien, just clear and free. We are not dangerous, it said, unless you try to keep us small.